Mid lane is one of the hardest roles in Predecessor to learn, but also one of the most rewarding, as it is a role that can single-handedly set the pace of a game and transitions into one of the most crucial teamfight roles with large AoE abilities and burst damage allowing you to dominate the enemy team. In this guide, I'm going to explain some of the basic mechanics of the role as well as some basic strategies you can implement to improve your gameplay and better understand the role. Primarily, I'll be referring to casters in this guide as they're traditionally played in the role. I'll perhaps cover more niche picks such as rangers or melee champs like Feng Mao or Sevarog in a future more advanced guide. In the following sections, I'll be talking about things such as farming and early wave management, trading in the lane, general warding spots, and the basics of teamfighting. So to start, the basic job of mid lane here is to be a late game carry, which means you need to get items online by farming efficiently in the early stages of the game and transition to a powerhouse late game. This means that your priorities should be securing minion kills as well as early river buffs. To better understand how to farm efficiently, you must understand the value of each minion and how they spawn and interact. The hierarchy of minion experience and gold value is your basic range minions at the bottom. Above that is basic melee minions, which are worth roughly 1/3 the value of a ranged minion. Then we have cannon minions, which spawn every third wave. These minions are equivalent to roughly 3 basic range minions and should be secured as often as possible. I will not be talking about super minions as they only spawn when an inhibitor has been taken in its respected lane and they are not relevant to the early laning phase. Next, there are 4 river buffs that can spawn on either side of the mid lane. These buffs provide varying benefits to the player that kill them for a short period of time. River buffs start to spawn at 3 minutes and continue to spawn every 2 minutes after that. A quick way to remember this is every odd number on the game clock will be a spawn of a set of river buffs. River buffs will always spawn every 2 minutes regardless if they are killed or not. This means that if you kill a river buff at 4 minutes and 30 seconds on the game clock, a new one will still spawn at the 5-minute mark. And that is if you don't clear them, it will still reset and could possibly be a different buff than the one that was previously there. The buffs that each of these give are as follows. The gray buff provides a movement speed increase, the purple buff provides a ability damage increase, the orange buff provides attack speed increase, and the green buff will grant you a health shield. All of the river buffs will regenerate a large portion of mana upon being taken and can help sustain you in the lane. This allows you to stay out longer and continue to use abilities on top of a small amount of golden experience and should be a high priority for mid laners. Now that you understand the value of each minion, the next thing we'll talk about is the early game wave management and ways to generate pressure and build a lead. Minion aggro is an important aspect of the early game of mid lane. Minion aggro will be acquired whenever you damage an enemy player with a single target damage source such as an auto attack or a single target ability. Damaging an enemy with an AoE ability such as a Gideon Meteor will not draw the aggro of minions even if you are only hitting the enemy player with that ability. These are important features that can aid in taking trades, which we'll talk about in the next section. In this clip, you can see how I auto-attack the steel bot. It results in me taking them minion aggro. However, when I hit the steel bot with my AoE abilities, I do not get the aggro of the minions. You can also use these mechanics to help set up wave freezes on your tower line by walking the minions toward your tower, or alternatively, break the freeze that might be happening to you by pulling the minions away from the enemy tower. Freezing the wave can allow you to force your opponent to play more aggressive in the lane in order to secure minion last hits at the increased risk of them being ganked by your team. This is why knowing how to break a freeze can be very impactful and reduce your early game deaths. Another tool you can utilize is the fog walls. Whenever you pass through a fog wall, it will reset minion aggro, so you can use them effectively to trade depending on where you're standing in the lane. Another thing you can do to help manage waves is by using your auto attacks to hit the minions and get them in range to be last hit by your abilities. A lot of people use their abilities to start off and then clear the minions with their auto attacks after. This can result in you losing minions to the damage of your own minions when you're auto attacking because you have a cooldown. A better way to clear minions is to use your auto attacks first, get them in range, and then clear with your abilities. This way you don't miss any extra minions and you can generate a lead this way. Next, I'll talk about things you can do to gain basic advantages when trading with the enemy mid laner. The first thing you can utilize is the minion aggro. By clearing the range minions first, if the enemy does not, you can force a trade of auto attacks, thus allowing you to win the trade because the enemy mid laner will be taking the damage from the range minions, whereas you can kite around the melee creeps without actually taking any damage. This results in an advantageous trade for you. Another thing you can do to win trades utilizing minions is hitting the enemy mid laner while also hitting the wave with AoE abilities. Since this will not pull minion aggro because it's an AoE ability, you can hit them and clear the wave at the same time. This then requires the enemy mid laner to make a decision whether he's going to return the damage by trading with you or hit the wave. If he chooses to hit the wave, then you get free damage. If he chooses to hit you, then he will lose pressure in the lane, which can transition into you getting something such as a river buff. The next thing you can do when trading with the enemy mid laner is punish things that they do. For example, if they auto attack, they will receive a 25% movement speed penalty. Another example would be something like in this clip, where you can see Bellica has to stop moving when she uses her knockup, or Howitzer has to stop moving when he uses his Q. This results in an easier time hitting them with your abilities and sets them up for you without having to worry about risking a mechanical error and missing your abilities or something like that. This can result in an advantageous trade and should be the windows of opportunity that you can look for in the lane or in team fights. Another tool you can use when basic trading in the mid lane is using abilities to stop your opponent from getting last hits. For example, you can use Howitzer Mine, like in this clip, to stop your opponent from being able to hit the minions. This results in them either securing the last hit at the cost of their HP, or just being completely denied the gold from the last hit of the minion. When trading, try not to get carried away and overextend trying to kill the enemy sometimes. Forcing them back can be just as valuable as getting a kill. If they're backing, they're still missing XP and gold, and you are still going to generate a lead. Another thing to watch out for when trading the enemy is to always be constantly checking their builds. See if they have backed yet. If you have a power spike on them, you can initiate a trade, and it will generally be beneficial to you. If you have a tier 1 item, an upgraded crest, something like that, you can easily take a winning trade against the opponent. Also keep track of how many potions they're using. You only get 2 every time you back. So if they haven't backed yet and you have 2 potions, you can have a winning trade against them. I won't be talking about rotations much in this guide, as this is something better saved for a more advanced guide since there's a lot of variables in rotations. However, the key thing to remember when rotating is to think about how much value for your team are you going to get. For example, rotating to the duo lane for a single kill but losing your tower in a full mid wave will generate less value for your team. The same logic can be applied to an enemy rotation, and with experience you can determine whether following the rotation or doing something else like pushing the wave will be better value. Do not forget that your number 1 priority as a mid laner is to get your items online and farm. Do not over-rotate. Do not put yourself in a position where you're going to be behind. If you want to have the highest impact possible in the game, you need to be getting your minions, you need to be getting your last hits. Kills are cool, but kills don't win games. Farm wins games. Warding is the next thing to talk about, and a crucial part of being safe in the mid lane since there's a lot of traffic from rotations and junglers. One of the spots you want to have vision in mid lane will be the 2 river buffs. These provide information on jungle ganks and potential ambushes when you're securing the river buffs. Another great spot is in the front of major objective pits. These words provide intel on the enemy team's movements to give your team the ability to react to what the enemy team is doing, providing better control of the objectives. The next 2 spots are on the left and right side of mid lane on the enemy side. These locations are key choke points leading into objectives and cover multiple pathways leading to greater vision and can be early detections of jungle ganks or mid lane rotations for your team. In a future guide I may cover some more advanced spots that rely more on game state, but for now these are general and basic word spots that can provide great benefits to your team. Lastly, team fights, which are important in MOBA and probably the place where casters can shine the most with their large burst damage abilities and AoE skills. Generally, the place you should position when playing most team fights is by your carry. By being with your carry, you'll make it easier on your support to peel for whichever one of you is being doped by the enemy frontline, as well as combining your damage together to help destroy the tanks. This allows you to peel for your carry and vice versa if necessary as well. When playing with the carry, just make sure not to be too close to be in range of the same ability. That way you can't give the enemy team too much value. Before teamfights usually happen, there will be opportunities to poke the enemy team, and something you should try to take advantage of, since this is one of the best things you can do as a caster. Even if you only take 10 to 15% off of a frontline, this can easily swing the direction of a teamfight by not allowing the enemy frontline to do what they want to do, because they're not going to be as healthy. You should also try to focus the enemy backline if given the opportunity from somebody being maybe out of position or something, since you can kill them in pretty much one rotation of your abilities most of the time. An important aspect of teamfight, especially if you're an immobile character, is that you'll be the target of the enemy team and should not be scared of dying sometimes. It's better to die but get as much damage off as possible, resulting in a winning teamfight as opposed to running from a fight because you're scared of a negative stat line. This is not always the case, but something that you should be aware of. If you aren't the type of player that likes to play in the backline with your ADC and you like to be more of a playmaker, the alternative way you can play teamfights is to play the flank yourself as a caster and wait for a team to engage. Once a team engages, you basically play like a jungler and you come in and try to kill the enemy backline. This is a very effective playstyle if you're on a character such as Gideon or Countess, but it's not the type of playstyle for everybody as it's very aggressive. This can also just put yourself in a position to get picked by the enemy team if they notice you on a ward or something, and this could instantly lose your team the fight as well. It could also lose your team the game by putting your carry alone in the backline. This could mean that maybe your carry can't kill the front line of the enemy team and or survive against the enemy team, and then it results in your team losing the fight before you even have a chance to impact. This is a very fun playstyle, but something that you should experiment with and see if it's more for you, or if you prefer more of the backline style. Be careful not to get tunnel vision in team fights. It's something that I see very common in newer players, and it's something that leads them to a lot of deaths and a lot of lost team fights. Something you should do as a caster is just remember that your job is to pump out AoE damage. Your job is not to secure kills. Let your jungler do that. Just hit people, do as much damage as you can in the fight. Even if you get 3 people to 10% HP, if your team is playing correctly, somebody else would be there to clean up the kills. You should also try to combine your abilities with the rest of your team. If your support hits a big Richter ult, you want to be hitting the people that are in the Richter ult usually. Anyways, that's all for this guide. If you learned something or found this helpful, let me know in the comments, as well as any other videos you might want to see. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.